When I went to school here, it was kindergarten to grade 8. And, you know, it made me the person that I am today. It provided me with a lot of confidence in who I was and what I represented. Everyone in the community was touched by Satinwood. Of course, she feeds off of me, but she's sad. She would really love to stay here. She's bonded with the school just like anybody else that has gone to Satinwood. It has a special something about it. Makes it warm in your heart that this is home, this is your second family.
It was just getting down in the number of students that were here. It is a small community, and they were down to 46 students. They just didn't feel that it was economical to keep it going. It is very difficult when you're the size of the public system and the size of the province to take and pump a bunch of extra money into a little school to keep it going. I mean, you have to be reasonable. And I can understand why they closed it, but we want a school in the community because a small community needs a school.
I think the community came to a realization that the board can't really support small schools in every location. Boards are caught in a very, very difficult conundrum. With limited funding coming into a school division, they have to make sure that those funds don't get appropriated inappropriately. And sometimes to support a smaller school as the numbers go down, it takes more and more funds from other schools in the division. So the boards are caught in a difficult position, and sometimes that's very, very hard to understand.
There's lots of rural schools closing across Alberta, and so it's not just our area, and we could see that. You know, Wetaskiwin was in the process of trying to close down most of their rural schools, are consolidating them, and we thought, like, this is not going to work. That just screamed like a billboard, don't move here. Because when you're going to move to an area, you want a school in your community.
I think one of the main challenges is convincing the general public and government that rural schools are viable and are important entities. There's been a consistent sort of movement to shut down rural schools. So when the government is announcing that they've increased funding to education, almost the totality of that funding increase is taken up by increases in enrollment, and that's being realized by urban school districts, not rural school districts.
And the bigger problem is the funding from the province doesn't recognize that in Alberta we're starting to see a shift of population from the small rural areas into the cities and towns. Without some kind of a format or framework to address that, I think we're going to see across the province more and more of the small rural schools are going to face some stresses.
When one service gets closed down, it has a ripple effect amongst all the others. You know, if your school closes down, then all the other businesses are impacted because families move away, and the center of the community becomes somewhere else instead of where you are.
Everything just is pulling them away from their agricultural roots, and I think that if these kids aren't doing chores and aren't involved in farming as a child, I don't think that they're going to be farmers when they become adults. And I think that that's going to be a huge problem for Alberta, for our country.
I really think that that as the school builds, that it'll attract people to the communities for the school. So I think that, and especially if you have a community where there's no school at all, it's almost like a nail in the coffin to keep the community going down. It makes it very, very hard to revitalize it and keep things going.
Those schools play a significant role in that whole life and vigor of the community itself. It provides an educational function, but it also provides the quality of life function. And if we don't recognize that, we're doing a great disservice socially to rural people.
As a government, how are we spending our money as a province so that we can adequately support these services that are essential? It's not good enough to be able to not get an education where you live. Now is the time to look into it and see, we need to find a permanent solution here so we're not just cycling back, because at some point it's going to be game over and the school is going to close.
I wish I had the answers. I just don't.
I don't know. It's all very worrisome for me.
Do you like school?
Yes, I love school.